This video will contain major spoilers for Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and Evoland 2. Later, I will also be discussing the endings of Nier Automata and Xenoblade 2, as I may as well give my take on that one photo. You know the one. Look at the timestamps for when the discussion of each game starts. How do you end a game? Well, with a big boss fight or extremely tough challenge, and then a scroll of credits. Okay, but how do you end a game's story? Today, I want to look at two games that took interestingly similar story approaches to their endings, despite coming at the topics from completely different ways. Xenoblade 3 and Evoland 2. Xenoblade 3 is a very good game from a very good series of games, and it doesn't really need an introduction because, statistically speaking, if you're watching this, you've probably already played the game. But to recap, Xenoblade 3 pits two ideas against each other: the uncertain future and the eternal now. The main characters you follow, with powers known as Ouroboros, and their allies, fight to make the world move forward. Literally. Real time has been stopped and the world is trapped in a cycle. The antagonists, Mobius, led by Zed, want to keep the world in an endless stasis. Zed is the embodiment of the fear of change, the desire to keep things as they are rather than face an uncertain future. Our heroes at the end of the game break the cycle, allowing the flow of time to resume. This also breaks apart the world, separating people who had come together. Noah and Mio, the game's leads and one true pair, were together for a few months at most. I'm not just saying they're the one true pair because the fans shipped them the most. They literally had a child together in a past life. This is not exactly a happy ending. I also love that it's not a happy ending. The characters know what they should do, but they still have reservations about it. Zed, after all, was the personification of those reservations. Fear of change is a strong motivation for stasis. Evoland 2, on the other hand, is a game you probably haven't heard of before, but I also like a lot. It also takes place in a time loop, with some characters trying to prevent disaster and change events, and the others trying to ensure that events keep repeating. Here's a brief lore synopsis. In the distant future, the seas will have risen, the ice islands will have melted, and technology will have advanced to a point of developing time travel. A group called the Magi make the project to wrap time back around to the start. In the course of your adventure to try to change fate, you accidentally perpetuate this cycle. Why does the ice island melt? The Magi refroze it with an artifact, and then you remove that artifact from the island in the past, causing it to start melting again. Most obviously and central to the plot, you try to stop a giant hometown obliterating explosion, but when you finally arrive at the machine that will blow up everything, to deactivate the machine, the main character instead activates the bomb. Turns out the protagonist's mission in the past before he lost his memory was to preserve the cycle. At the most basic level, Evoland 2 is Xenoblade 3, but you're accidentally playing as Mobius. The final boss of Evoland 2 is the mixed-race daughter of two of the characters, who wants to stop the project and break the time loop. You defeat her at least for this cycle, ending her attempt to break the cycle and ensuring that history will continue to repeat. This summary absolutely steamrolls any nuance out of the story, and to be honest, if you've actually played the game, you probably would be like, well, yes, but you're misrepresenting things a bit. But what I'm trying to drill down to is that Evoland 2 tackles themes that are very similar to Xenoblade 3. Both are a diverse cast brought together by strange circumstances to fight against fate, with an ending that's hard to describe as happy. More importantly, their cycle is not self-perpetuating, it's not the natural state of the world. Without a concentrated force keeping the cycle running, it would break. While the Magi in Evoland making the project are not a magic force manifesting an abstract concept, they still have the same motivation: fear of change. Evoland 2 is far from a polished gem of a game, but I like it. And hey, I just found a good excuse to talk about it because its themes are very interesting, even if some or a lot of its ideas sort of fall short of their potential. The Demonia arc is the best example of this inconsistent quality. You go through the whole strategy RPG portion of the game, which is cool but lasts far too long in comparison with all the other game styles, and get the big plot reveal that the demons were created by the Magi in the past. And then you play Guitar Hero for a boss fight. Depending on the player, this could either be the peak point of the game, or a ridiculous genre and tone shift that really undercuts the story. In many ways, it's the opposite of the Xenoblade ethos, and not just because it's an indie game. The Xenoblade combat system has evolved a lot if you're a series fan, but Xenoblade 3 is still a skills-on-cooldown focused, aggro-controlled party combat RPG, with direct control of one character and a computer control of the others, same as all the previous games in the series. The most major gameplay innovation that 3 had outside of combat was giving you a boat. Evoland 2, on the other hand, is a cornucopia of themes and just flat-out completely different gameplay styles all in the same game. From Zelda to Street Fighter to Fire Emblem to Cannabalt and more. It's all about variety. And yet again, they still have the same plot, a diverse party of visiting different areas and cultures and seeing the value of the world. Oh, wait, now I've gone too general, I'm just describing every JRPG. The important thing is they both end with a question of the value of breaking a cycle, and I think that's interesting. Let's get to a couple other things about Xenoblade 3's ending while I'm making a video about it. Let's talk about the ending cutscene. Not the picture yet, but the sad part of the ending. This is the part where the Nier Automata spoilers start. At the end of Xenoblade 3, the worlds are separated. If not permanently, at least for a long time now. Gotta leave in a possible sequel somewhere, I guess. Noah has to come to terms with accepting this reality, and yet, even at the last moment, they all run towards each other, delaying the inevitable as long as possible until there is a point where they must accept the reality they have been fighting for. The stasis cannot continue anymore. Except it can. You, the player, can keep playing to complete all the side content and fight all the super bosses. There's even extra content with Nia and Melia after the credits but before the end of the game, back in the combined Ionios. You can even reenact Evoland 2's ending yourself and play the whole thing again in New Game Plus. Since first playing Nier Automata, I have not seen another game that would have benefited more from copying its ending. Xenoblade 3 should offer the player a choice. A choice to embrace the endless now and keep playing, or to accept the game's ending and delete your save file. No New Game Plus, no extra content, the game is over, and you move on. That's what the characters had to do. Now, there's reasons to not do this, including DLC. I don't think people would want to replay the whole game just to see the new content they just paid for. But sometimes you need to make sacrifices for artistic intent. The entire sequence in the prison for Xenoblade 3 shows Monolith is fine with making players bored and frustrated, to drive home a point. Copying Nier's ending would have put a lot of strain on the fourth wall for a game that tries very hard to justify even its UI elements within the game world. But I think having that at the end would also firmly cement Xenoblade 3 as the best game in the series for me. Xenoblade is not a series defined by player-driven choices, but here at the end it could have been. Do you, the player, accept this as an ending? Alright, Xenoblade 2 spoiler time. Now we can talk about that picture at the end of Xenoblade 3 of Rex and his 3 baby mamas. I think this is pretty stupid. I don't hate it conceptually, but I do kinda hate that it's a reminder Rex, my least favorite protagonist, got the best ending in the series. But it's not like that's unexpected. Someone was reproducing with blades to create all the blade-like Agnians in Xenoblade 3. However, there's one thing I do hate, the placement of the photograph. It's a giant middle finger to the ending of 3 in the middle of an emotional final cutscene. Our protagonists are separated after only a few months together, but remember Rex? That guy got to live his best life. The intended message of this scene seems to be Nia thinking about the friends she has parted with, but it just did not land. It's also undercut by Poppy running into the room happily. The tone is just all off. Having a scene like this would have fit in fine as an extra detail in Nia's story quest, which is already heavily focused on reminiscing about Xenoblade 2, and wouldn't have been a massive distraction from the ending of the game. Just don't throw it in the final moments of an emotional climax out of nowhere. That's all I have to say about this picture in relation to the plot. Thank you for listening to me talking about several scattered thoughts about Xenoblade 3's ending. I guess I should also mention that I was spoiled to the Rex picture on release day of Xenoblade 3, but at the time I thought it was fake. Why would someone create a picture of their fanfiction and label it as a spoiler to a game that Rex isn't even in? What the heck? Anyway, thanks for watching this sort of rambling video. This was supposed to get out well before the Xenoblade 3 DLC story released, but obviously that didn't happen. The rest of this video was recorded before that came out, so I don't have any comment on the DLC story. If it's something that I have something deep or interesting to say about, I guess I'll make a video on that too. Bye.